Welcome back. It's inevitable in all of our relationships. Eventually, you or that other person will do something wrong, and the other person is going to complain about it. Timmy Gibson is a relationship coach, and he's back with us to talk about healthy ways to respond when someone brings up a complaint in the relationship, because it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Okay, what's the first thing that someone should do when they hear that complaint?
Well, the first thing is to ask questions for better understanding of what's going on. Many times people want to belittle or criticize that person for whatever they're bringing to you, and it's what they call in the business world feedback. You know, but in a relationship we don't want feedback, but there's going to be contention, there's going to be differences, so you have to be able to ask questions to better understand what's going on.
As opposed to jumping in, well, why don't you do this?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I mean, because it's easy to go there. Someone complains
sure.
about why
then
don't
you complain to them.
Yeah, so don't do that.
Right. No, don't do that. Let them explain what's going on, and then you just ask more questions.
Okay, now you want to acknowledge the feelings behind that complaint.
Yes. Don't defend yourself. Too many times in a relationship we want to, well, the feelings aren't real. You know, well, what about me? And you know, just listen, acknowledge the feelings. They're legitimate. That's how they feel. Acknowledge that, and that'll help them get out more of what's going on inside their heart.
It's so hard for us to listen sometimes, to hear, you know, that we're not perfect and our spouse or significant other may see those faults.
That's right.
And sometimes we'll point them out. So we just have to listen to them, right?
Yes.
It's hard to do. Okay.
Well, not only that, it can lead to, if you don't respond right, then it leads to, it escalates it and it becomes a full-on fight, where if you just go, oh, okay, and get curious, then it can downplay it.
We can avoid that fight.
Yes.
Okay, should we own up to our own problems?
Absolutely. You got to take responsibility for the problem. Anytime there's a problem, there's always two people involved. And so you have to be able to take ownership and responsibility for it.
Okay, your last tip's a pretty important one in terms of, like, you know, acknowledging our faults. Is that one of the biggest problems that people have in relationships?
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
looking at ourselves as opposed
absolutely.
to projecting onto our partner?
Everybody knows that they're not perfect. We know that I'm not perfect, but it's hard to own up to it, especially when someone's bringing you something and saying, hey, listen, I wish you wouldn't do this. And you're like, well, you do that. Well, what about this? Or, you know.
I think we're all guilty of that.
Everybody's
sadly.
guilty of it, yeah.
Okay, so when you work with folks in relationships, what's the usual advice that you give when they have those specific problems? Like, give us some specifics that you might.
Yeah, whenever I say, listen, you guys got to dig deep and get behind the actual issue and get down to the feelings of it. I always say separate the person from the problem. So rather than going, oh, the problem is you. No, actually the problem is our time together, or it's our dating, or it's our finances. Don't lump that person into the problem, because then it's like, you're my problem.
Right.
No. The issue is budget. So how can you and I come together and fix our budget problem?
Okay, what if you're the complainer? How do you come with that complaint to your significant other?
Yeah, we do talk a lot about that, and how I bring a complaint to you is important too. If I'm saying you and I'm pointing and I'm angry,
no, don't point.
You know, no. But if I come to you and say, hey, listen, hon, can we go grab some coffee? There's some things that we need to talk about that I think will help our relationship be better. Oh, then everybody's like, well, yeah, I'm all in for that.
Right.
You know.
When do you bring up the complaint? Not when you're already fighting, obviously.
No, you got to bring it up at the right time. You got to look for a good opportunity to bring stuff up to where they'll be receptive of it.
All right. So any other advice, relationship advice?
Yeah, and the last thing we always tell, don't run away. You know,
don't run away.
Most people in a relationship, there's one or the other. They're peacemakers. They don't want to fight. They don't even want to have any contention. And sometimes those people will run away. They'll get quiet. The silent treatment.
The silent treatment.
And you can't do that. You got to actually hash those things out in a loving way.
We talked about earlier, sometimes it is good to fight. We want to avoid the fights, but at least discuss those things so they don't build up and then they blow up.
You do these things, and the fight will go from here to here, and it'll be a more manageable discussion.
A discussion, we like those. All right, thanks, Timmy.